So it took me about 20 years to figure out what I wanted to be when I grow up. So I don't know about any of you guys here tonight, but I think it's a lifelong progress that we go through to develop. Kind of things change, our personalities change, our environments change that guide us one way or another. So really, I've had the opportunity, I started my professional career in the United States military as an electrician. So I've had the opportunity to do some amazing work with technology. My career then evolved into aircraft carrier and submarine manufacturing and overhaul. So the ability to see how, being able to help protect our nation and our freedoms was just always been something that's been very, very important to me. I've had the luxury of working with night vision technology. And if anybody hasn't ever been in the military or been able to try night vision, it's it's a technology that's been around for a very, very long time, but it has evolved. And again, my passion has been safety, not just for our allied forces, but also our troops, our public servants. So all of that really encompasses where I've been able to take my passions and my energy for public safety, for wanting to create better outcomes and being a personal contributor to that. Really brought me to the idea and concept of something that I've always wanted to do, which was be an entrepreneur. So I started out, like many folks, in community college, right out of high school. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something maybe related in accounting until I took some accounting classes. I dabbled a little bit as an engineer when I got out of the military until I took my first CAD design class. So really a lot has evolved in my kind of path forward, but that strong passion of always wanting to be an entrepreneur and always wanting to give back really led me to embrace the opportunity of what a real social entrepreneur is capable of. And for me, what being a social entrepreneur is really about is taking innovation, taking technology, and trying to apply it to today's problems. So when you turn on the news, what do you guys see in the news? You see a lot of challenging environments. We see a lot of news stories, whether they're politically driven or dealing with our law enforcement, dealing with our youth. And so the opportunity to be able to find a business or create a business that really focuses being able to have a positive impact on some of these social issues that we're faced with right now. And what all that has led me to is the opportunity to use virtual reality technology to help start to, and be very creative, being able to start working on what can one person, what can one small group of like-minded people, what can we do together to begin to combat some of these social issues, whether it's through education, giving new experiences, a multitude of things. We really have, so my company's name is called 360 Immersive, and we picked that name because there's a whole world ahead of us with this new technology that's upon us. And it didn't just get invented, right? It's been around since the 50s, 60s. Really used a lot for aviators, military, medical purposes. Very expensive technology to be able to integrate and use until about 4 or 5 years ago, right? So really the opportunity to be able to begin to experiment at the consumer level was really fostered through hardware, such as these types of devices, virtual reality headsets coming out, computer systems that can actually process all of the information that a virtual reality experience generates. And finding an opportunity in a much needed environment outside of just gaming and entertainment. Because typically when you think of virtual reality, what do you guys think of? Video games. Absolutely. Well, we took a little bit of a different approach. Coming from a our company has been around since 2001. And we started as a traditional marketing company. And we evolved over time into digital marketing, in 2D and 3D animation. And so as we evolved with technology, and then we saw the onset of virtual reality and the potential for what that could do, we realized besides just being able to use it to enhance a brand for a marketing purpose or to tell a story, we looked at it from the opportunity of being able to save lives. We looked at it as an opportunity to enhance outcomes, reduce injuries, right? So from that social awareness perspective, 3-4 years ago, what was really big in the news? Active shooter situations, law enforcement, civilians being shot, a lot of these things. And as time has gone by, when we start looking at what else is in the news right now, mental health, guns, all of these things. So what we've been able to do over the last 3 or 4 years, it's been quite the journey. We spent a lot of time educating people on the power of the technology and how it can be used for a lot more than just training, or a lot more than just gaming and using it for sporting events and other forms of entertainment. While all of those are great, what about being able to bring some of those components and put them into enhanced training and education programs? So what we've done is we began to experiment, and I can't overemphasize the idea of experimentation when it comes to developing something that there's no playbook for virtual reality right now, okay? So as a small business owner, we have to experiment. We have to be extremely creative with how we come up with stories. The way that you produce content in virtual reality is completely different than any type of traditional video or traditional gaming software development. And so when we talk about creativity, we look at all the different, components that go into developing content. And content, my friends, is if any of you have wondered, virtual reality's been kind of in the news a little bit. I'm surprised it really hasn't taken off very much. There's one challenge, that's not fair. One of the biggest challenges, I would say, as to why the technology hasn't advanced in a more rapid pace is because of content. It's all about creating good quality content. And that's what we pride ourselves on, is being able to create that content. Now, let's talk a little bit about the type of content that we create. So from a training perspective, again, let's go back to public servants and law enforcement. How can you place an officer into a very, very dangerous, potentially dangerous situation and allow them to experience that situation in a safe and meaningful way? If you can create it in a virtual reality experience, it allows officers to go through multiple different types of scenarios and practice. Practice until they can get it to be muscle memory. Practice it until they really feel and understand the good, the bad, and the ugly without any type of repercussions or negative consequences. Okay? So we think about firefighters. How can you help those guys, especially new firefighters out coming into those fields? How about when they're in their criminal justice or the first couple of years of training? How can you really expose them to the potential hazards so that they understand what they're getting themselves into, right? How do you know this is a good career choice for yourself? Virtual reality allows people to be able to begin to experiment, and that's what we want them to do. Whether it's, is this a good career path for me? How do I deal with this situation? Without, again, fear of any type of negative repercussions. Another way that we're using the technology to help our law enforcement and public servants is a lot of them are dealing with the public, and some situations that arise in the public, they have to deal with people who might have under the influence of a narcotic, are dealing with mental illness, are suffering from some other type of learning disability, or maybe they are suffering from a mild case of autism. And it's just trying to understand what somebody suffering from these types of, whether it's, again, a narcotic or under the influence of something, versus somebody who's having a really, really bad day. How can you tell the difference of what's really going on with that person? If you're able to expose people to these types of different situations, and in a virtual reality headset, you actually can make that connection with somebody. And I don't know, is there anybody in here who has not demoed VR before? Okay, a couple of you. So I might get a couple of blank stares. But virtual reality, when you put a virtual reality headset in, you immediately become immersed within that environment. So if you saw they were jumping out of airplanes over here, when you look down, who tried jumping out of the airplane? Did it feel like when you jumped out, when you looked down, your stomach dropped?
Yeah, you want to hold on to your
Yeah.
You kept saying go a little further, like how far.
The sense of presence and physically being in a space, it's remarkable, right? So a couple of you who haven't tried it before, there's no medium right now that can allow that type of connection. And the ability to put yourself into a scenario and get excited or get scared or get anxious, you can't develop that in any other medium, right now that's available. So being able to use that to an advantage when you're training somebody or educating somebody on something is very profound. If you want to develop empathy, how do you develop empathy? Are you born with it? Do you develop it because you've been there and done that and you can feel for somebody else? But what if you don't know what that feels like? What if you don't know what somebody who's suffering from a mental illness is actually going through? Well, in virtual reality, we can recreate that using a live experience. And what I mean by, there's a couple of different types of virtual reality that can be created. One is a live 360 experience. So if you guys saw up here people jumping out of airplanes, or maybe the Boise State football game where you kind of feel like you're part of the crowd and you're getting amped up and running out of the tunnel, that's one way of creating virtual reality content. The other way is through computer-generated simulation, and kind of think of the gaming concept, right? Okay, I just wanted to bridge that in case I keep getting some blank stares. So I guess my point is being able to relate to other people and being able to walk in somebody else's shoes. That's what virtual reality can allow for us. And I was in a panel last night at the Idaho Virtual Reality Council. Has anybody heard of the IVRC? It's a nonprofit organization trying to promote, they're doing a fantastic job promoting virtual reality in Idaho, just like the name says. But I was on a panel discussion last night, and the question that came up was, what are some of the benefits of virtual reality? And when it came to my turn to answer that, my response was very point blank. It really shows, and the power of the technology is showing how human we all are. Being able to walk in somebody else's shoes, being able to understand somebody else's culture. Imagine if you don't know what it's like to be a Muslim girl, being able to put a virtual reality headset on, walk around town, look all around you at how people may be looking at you or treating you a little bit differently. What's it feel like to be somebody else? Can we start to be a little bit more kind to one another when we have the ability to feel what somebody else might be feeling? So whether it's somebody who's suffering from a mental illness, or somebody, when we talk about eliminating barriers of cultural biasness and maybe what it's like being a woman in technology, or what it's like being somebody with a disability in the workplace. If we can start to really empathize and develop a feeling for what other people go through, maybe we can make our world just a little bit better. You know, maybe we can get those barriers broken down and understand a little bit more clearly. And so that is one of the biggest powers that I see that this technology affords. You can't teach somebody empathy. They have to feel it and they have to figure it out for themselves. So being able to incorporate that, you know, into learning experiences, into training outcomes, into brand messaging, all of that stuff is really, really important when you're talking about trying to capture people's attention and really be able to form a connection with somebody. That's one of the biggest benefits that I see for the technology. So I've talked a little bit about what my company is doing with the technology in the training and education space. But I think the thing that I'm the most proud of that we just launched is a new project. And it's called We Stream VR. And what that stands for, STREAM is kind of a double entendre. What STREAM stands for is an acronym of science, technology, robotics, engineering, arts, and mathematics. Big mouthful. Think of STEM on steroids. And what this project is all about is taking girls that are in the 5th and 6th grade. I have a lot of access to them because I have an 11-year-old myself. But taking these girls and exposing them to the potential of STEM on steroids. And then we stream their interaction, and I'll talk a little bit more detail about what that interaction looks like. But we stream all of this content on YouTube for the kids. Anybody got kids in the room where they're watching YouTube and watching a lot of shenanigans? As a parent, mission number 1, try to find something on YouTube that's got some value to it, got some learning objectives built into it. So for the kids, it's all about getting content on YouTube. For the parents, grandparents, and teachers, it's about exposing them to STEM-related activities and how they can bring those activities into the classroom or into the home. Because let's just face it, there's a lot of teachers out there, and there's a lot of parents and grandparents that they don't know what they don't know. They don't even know where to begin. You know, in public schools right now, and I'm not going to get off on a tangent about public schools, these teachers are doing the very, very best that they possibly can with the resources and the education that they have. If your child doesn't go to a charter school, the likelihood of them being exposed in elementary school to science, technology, robotics, engineering, arts, and math is very limited. I mean, you're talking about maybe a couple of hours a month. So how can a company like mine help? By creating this, to me, this is a social outreach program. What we're able to do is we're able to take and follow a very diverse group of girls. I've got a girl from Haiti. I've got a girl from Vietnam. I've got some quirky girls. I've got some extrovert girls. I've got some introvert girls. I've got a Latina. My point is this. If we can take a diverse group of girls and give them exposure at the elementary level of what the possibilities, what the future possibilities, not just of what can my career be someday, but really open their minds to maybe when I go into, middle school, junior high, or high school, I want to learn how to code because I've been able to be exposed to it just in a little bit. So our first episode that we created, and I want to mention one more thing. This We Stream VR concept was developed and our first episode was produced in 100 days. Now, some people may not understand the magnitude of being able to do something like that, but to come through the creative process, and here we're going to go back to creativity, experimentation, using technology, right? There's no roadmap here, folks. We're just There's a mission of giving something back to our community, specifically talking about girls and STEM-related activities. But if you have, with this thought of being able to create something better and start from somewhere, we have to start somewhere giving our youth more exposure to what their potential future could possibly look like. I don't know how many students are in here, but if you had an opportunity to think about all the different careers and maybe even see what a day in the life of XYZ role would be like. If you had that opportunity, would you have some different choices that you would have made? I know I would. I joined the military because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. It's not the only reason, but it was a big reason. If I had been exposed to different potential careers, different things that I don't know about that I could be exposed to, I would have definitely found that as a benefit. So with these young girls, and we're going to try to even develop younger, but if girls haven't been exposed to STEM-related curriculum or activities by the 3rd grade, the likelihood of them developing through the rest of elementary school and then continuing their education and taking electives at the junior level, junior high and then into high school is significantly reduced. So if we're able to expose these young girls, and right now we're focusing on girls, but we will be making it all more inclusive, but right now, again, the focus is on young ladies. But if we're able to take them through that journey, let them still be quirky, let them still have fun, but expose them to all the different potential ideas. Our first episode that we shot was robots. And we were at Hackford, and we did a live 360 experience of the girls building these little mini robots. And then they got to battle them, and so it was a really good experience for them. We shot it, we consolidated it all down to a 5-minute experience, and now we've posted it out onto YouTube and out onto Facebook. And at the same time, we were able to expose the girls to what it's like to build a robot and to learn a little bit about coding and a little bit of following instructions and things like that. We were also able to promote a small business in Idaho. So being able to not only help promote this initiative, we're also able to help small businesses. And so we look at the ability to collaborate and share information using this technology. And again, we're just experimenting. We're just trying to figure out, is this something that would be beneficial out into the public domain? We believe there's a huge opportunity. There's nobody else out there right now using virtual reality in the way that we are with engaging our youth. Because what's good for my daughter and her friends in Boise, Idaho is just as good for anybody else's kids. And it doesn't matter if they live in Idaho or not, or if they live in California, Florida, Canada, it doesn't matter. But being able to expose them to the future potential of what could be is so impactful for us, and it's amazing what this technology has been able to afford us. So every episode, and then it's kind of fun, every episode the girls are going to be able to say a joke that's related to whatever topic we're discussing. And again, our first episode, it was robotics. Do you guys want to hear a joke?
Sure.
So the joke goes like this. You ever noticed how robots sometimes get embarrassed? Anybody wondered why? They have hardware, they have software, but they don't have any underwear.
See, this is where I would get my mic drop.
That's from the anyway. So why not use our platform of virtual reality, training and education, developing our youth, and put something out on social media that gives us hope for humanity. I mean, gives us hope for using social media in a more positive light. So what other social challenges do we have out there, and how can the technology help develop that? How can it help bridge those communication gaps? How can it create better outcomes? We have a lot of ideas, And we're always looking for other people to bring their ideas to us as well. Because there's so much that we can do with this technology, and we're really blessed being a small business that we are, because we're not held to any one particular industry. We can go out and service any type of organization or any type of industry to be able to look at, let's talk about last summer, big in the headlines, motorcycle deaths. So guess what we did? We partnered with a local company that is subject matter experts. They're called Be Crash Free. They are out of Star, Idaho, on the national circuit for their motorcycle safety training. Brilliant, brilliant company. And we came up with the idea of, why don't we create virtual reality motorcycle safety training, where it's a live 360 experience and you're being guided through, and it's not for people who've never ridden a motorcycle before. It's for people who already have their motorcycle license. But just like everybody else, unless you've moved to a different state, have you ever gone back and got more training for how to drive a car? There's something to be said for people who ride motorcycles. Number one, I think you're crazy. I'm just kidding. You don't know what it's like to ride a motorcycle unless you've ridden one. You don't understand the hazards that are inherent on the road unless you've ridden one. So what we can do is we can take people who already have their motorcycle license and we can give them enhanced training. And we can use subject matter expertise in order to be able to walk people and talk people and then get them to physically understand what we're talking about using virtual reality technology. What's a high-speed stop look like? How are you supposed to control a motorcycle when you're going 55 miles an hour and it's slick out and you just got cut off by a car? These are what these training sessions can do for you, right? And so we are able to develop a mobile app that allows anybody, anywhere, who's interested in learning and enhancing their motorcycle safety skills so that they can go home safe to their families, right? How powerful is that? And because it's in a mobile app, anybody who's interested can access it. Our main mission and our main goal is to save lives and reduce injuries. We are 100% committed to using this technology to be able to foster that. We're also very much socially involved with what's going on in our communities and our youth. And the potential that's in front of us with the future of not just virtual reality, but the different realities that are coming right behind it. We're at a point in time right now that is so amazing. People say, hey, the computer was great. Internet, look at all the things that the internet has allowed us to do. Sometimes I think technology gets a raw deal on people saying, oh great, virtual reality, you're gonna have a bunch of robots running around, people jacked in. Anybody watch Black Mirror? You guys seen any of those episodes? Crazy. It's all about abuse of technology. As content creators, the one thing that we take the most pride in is always creating content that is pushing humanity forward. So with that, I would love to open the floor to anybody that has any questions, whether it's questions, clarifying questions, or would like to understand more about how we use the technology, wants to understand more about VR. So I'm just going to open the floor. Yeah.
Saw a lot of examples of like job training or occupational scenarios. Do you have any like specific experiences or applications that an instructor might be able to use virtual reality in a classroom for students?
Great question. So I just had the opportunity actually at a safety fest, at the Boise Safety Fest, to do a presentation right alongside an OSHA inspector, and it was trench safety. Because last year, we had 2 people die in the trench. The trench collapsed on them. And so they really wanted at Safety Fest to put on a training course about trench safety. And he said, how many of you guys in the audience want to sit here and listen to me go through PowerPoint slides on trench safety? Or how many of you want to experience how to look for hazards within a trench before you ever get in one? And what do those hazards look like? And oh, by the way, if you get down in the trench and it collapses on you, what that feels like. So that's one example of how we just recently used it in a live training scenario. There's lots of opportunities. So let's talk a little bit about how some community colleges are beginning to incorporate that into their organizations. What you can see is being able to enhance an online curriculum. Okay, so here you have an online curriculum where people are logging in, they're reading content, they're watching videos, but how do you really expose them to the content so that they feel it and can make judgments based off of the content? If you're able to put them in a virtual reality experience, where let's say you're instructing on hazard identification or situational awareness, how can you explain that by watching a 2D video or reading something? In this instance, put a virtual reality headset on and then look around for hazard identification. It makes that connection to the curriculum so much more real, and you're just so much more part of the content that not only does it resonate with you in your mind, you're fully engaged, retention rates increase significantly, and the outcomes, when you get into a situation, your muscle memory should kick right back in, because it feels like it's a memory that you were part of something, right? So that's some way online curriculum is being developed with virtual reality embedded into it. And again, when we talk about creating experiences and adding them into learning and education, we're talking about 3 to 5 minute experiences. You're never going to put somebody in a virtual reality headset for 45 minutes. You know, you'll come out and you're like, oh, I guess the point is when we talk about micro-learning is great. It significantly reduces time, and it's very concerted, very focused learning. But what happens when the primary objectives of micro-learning aren't really sinking in and they're not resonating with the students or the viewers? With VR, micro-learning bridges that gap because, again, it's that feeling of connectedness. So when you talk about creating 3 to 5 minute learning objectives, you can really hit a home run in essence. So maybe a 1 hour lecture goes a little bit like this. Instead of 45 minutes of PowerPoint lecture and a 15-minute classroom discussion, maybe it's a 25 or 30-minute classroom discussion. Everybody puts on a virtual reality headset, or they're viewing an experience on a screen, just like we were doing up here earlier. You go through the experience, you take the headset off, and then you ask, what did you see? And did you notice this? And did you see that? And you're bringing back in that whole dialogue and keeping the class engaged, but giving them really something that they no longer have to think in their head of, well, I think this is what they're trying to say and what they're trying to convey. Instead, you feel it, and you're part of that whole scene. So I hope that answers your question.
As follow up, what's the most cost-effective VR out there for someone who wanted to get it for their whole class? Like, what's the price range?
So, hi, I want you to build me a house. How much is it going to cost? So it's kind of that same concept. It depends, what are you looking for, right? You're looking for a 3-story, 2-car garage, backyard, this big, this and this thing.
2 bedrooms, 1 bath. Small lot.
Yeah, so great question. Here's what we're doing right now with a lot of learning institutions. We're creating pilot projects, okay? Very small scale projects that they can then bring into the classroom and experiment with. So let's talk about, and I don't want to throw out another university, but one I can talk about is the University of Utah. They have an entire hazardous material worker trainer program. And what they're doing is they're using virtual reality and they're integrating it into their curriculum. And then instead of the instructor saying, okay, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you just got a phone call that there's a chemical spill at the railroad station, and there's 2 people laying on the floor, the wind is blowing in from the south, and you know, instead of a tabletop exercise or going through a verbal exercise, they're able to actually put them in a virtual reality experience and say, identify every single hazard or potential hazard that you see within this scene. Tell me what you see. What should you be mindful of, right? Something like that. That's a program that we've been working on for about a year. We just built them an app, and we are I think we have 4 different experiences that we're ultimately going to create for them, and that price range, and it's a mobile app, right? So it's not just for the students, it's also for the public. So that's kind of a multi-purposed example, but that's in the range of about $15,000 to $20,000. The majority of that expense is the app, right? A mobile app, and then you add libraries of content within the mobile app. So everything is archived and cataloged very nicely, very neat, and able to access on demand. And he did the next
Sorry.
question. It's okay. Well, and because everybody says, oh, new technology, this is going to be so expensive, we're not here to try to drive prices. What we're here to do is drive value and to, again, help people. So our company is uniquely positioned, once again, to be able to do that, whether it's custom content or once you've created a virtual reality, let's say a computer-generated simulation or a gaming environment. What's really great about that, you have the environment, and then you can just kind of repurpose it. Maybe it's different content in there, but at some point, learning is learning, and an experience is an experience. How you do things may be a little bit different than how she does things, and all you have to do is just change out maybe some of the verbiage or some of the points that are being made. But it's all about critical skill development, right? It's all about thinking. It's all about applying what do you see, what do you do next, what should you be aware of. That's the best use case of the technology.
So just to clarify, you're wanting to integrate this as a standard medium for safety, correct?
Safety, workplace safety, transportation safety, those are one component, absolutely.
Even something as simple as, say, a high school driving curriculum, for example?
You know, we've talked about, like I said, we've done motorcycle safety training. We've talked about being able to do something for the young drivers and create content for that as well. The opportunities they're endless. I mean, it really, if it's a good use case for the technology where you need to be aware of your surroundings, and driving is a massive one, and that one's near and dear to my heart. I lost a brother in a car accident, okay? So anything that you can do to make our youth, anybody out on the roadways, more aware. It's not just me, the one driving, it's the other people around me that need to be aware of what's going on as well. So that's a great use case, is the biggest accidents that occur have to do with transportation. And so a big component of OSHA regulations is transportation safety, right? So there's a lot of use cases and capabilities to be able to use the technology for enhanced interaction with driving and your surroundings. Definitely.
How big is your team?
How big is our team? So right now we have, well, what we do is we have 5 in-house personnel, and then what we're able to do in order to keep our overhead as low as we can, which keeps our costs low, which allows us to keep our opportunities for other companies to experiment and keep that cost to them low, is we outsource And we bring in contractors to help develop content as we ebb and flow with the technology and the demand for us right now. And what I mean by outsource, I mean we keep our talent local. We're not going overseas or anything like that. Everything is done here, and we are always looking for opportunities to keep our students here in Idaho and use us as a potential platform to develop their skills, whether they're at the community college or in college right now. And they have some software experience, or they have some coding experience, some app development experience, some creative writing experience. You just never know. We try to foster all of that through the use of freelance and contractors.
How with that, you mentioned creative writing. How would creative writing help with your content?
Jen, can you repeat her question?
Oh yeah, absolutely. She's asking how can creative writing help us with content creation in virtual reality? Everything we do has to be creative. You have to look at all different types of ways to create content right now. And so creative writing is a big component of being able to tell a story. And so being able to tell that story in a new and innovative way, how we produce the content is one thing, but we're always, because we get into so many different types of industries, we're always looking for content creators or creative writers to help us bring that story to life. We're good at creative writing, but not as good as somebody else who's been trained in it and goes to school for it and those types of things. So while we have a background in marketing and creating a story, we're more focused on producing that story. And so we need creative writers and creative thinkers and innovative thinkers to help us bring that story to life in virtual reality. Any other questions? Did you guys get a couple of nuggets of information? Was this helpful? Was it useful? Can I get some heads nods? I appreciate everybody's time, and I just want to thank you again for the opportunity to come and speak. And if anybody has any questions about our company or any of the things that we've discussed, please feel free to come up. I'll hang out also for the awards. I'm excited to see who wins. So I'm going to hang out, and thank you so much for sharing your projects, your Connections projects with me. And, I can't overemphasize enough. Stay creative. Get inspired by some of the projects you saw today. Continue your education, because what that does is it opens so many doors that you just don't even know are available to you right now. And stay engaged. Experiment. There's no wrong answers out there. Just keep trying and just keep going. Keep creating. Thank you.